Surah Al-Ra'd is a Madani surah. Ra'd means thunder. Allah begins the surah by speaking about the revelation of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He speaks about his creation and how he has raised the skies without any pillars, and how everything is set on a sequence, one following the other. So day following night, the appearance of the moon, followed by the sun, and then that continuous sequence of dimensions are here. And all of these are signs from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He speaks about how people would in the past seek the punishment of Allah as a mockery to the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam. Allah speaks about His knowledge of everything, and even that which a mother's womb holds, Allah is aware of it. Allah speaks about certain angels whom He designates for the protection of mankind. Allah says, لَهُمْ مُعَقِّبَاتٌ مِّن بَيْنِ يَدَيْهِ وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِ يَحْفَظُونَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِ اللَّهِ. That there are angels that come one after the other, in front of Him and behind Him. They protect Him with the instruction of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From the hadith and from this verse and others we learn that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designated and allocated angels that take turns, and their job is to protect a person. And from hadith we learn that, for example, to protect a person from a wall falling on him or some other calamity. And when the instruction of Allah would come that that person is to pass away or something is to happen, then Allah instructs those angels to move aside, and then that calamity befalls that person. According to some hadith we learn that these angels also help this person stay away from sin. Allah then speaks about a very beautiful verse, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah does not change that which is with the people until they change that which is with themselves. Meaning, we can ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us hidayah, to show us the straight path, to raise us amongst the pious, but not until we make a concentrated effort in making a change in our lives will that change ever happen. And a person has to proactively make changes in their lives for them to expect a change to come within their lives. And Ramadan is a great opportunity for that. It's amazing that our souls, they need a spiritual boost, without which they will continue to decline. And because we would never voluntarily look to acquire that spiritual boost, what does Allah do? Because of His love for us, He forces us and gives us the month of Ramadan and says, you have to fast. You have to fast. And fasting in itself is a physical method of bringing spiritual growth into ourselves. In the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says that fasting is like a protection. And in another hadith, as-siyam junnah, that fasting is like a shield and it protects a person. What does it protect them from? Evil. Prophet ﷺ says in the hadith, "Man istata'a minkum al-ba'ata falyatazawwaj." Man lam yastati' minkum al-ba'ata, that whoever of you cannot marry, then he should fast. So that would be a guard for him. So fasting in itself is a way of protecting ourselves from vice and evil. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forces that upon us in the month of Ramadan, that we have to fast. And automatically that brings an element of spiritual growth within us. But then that is incomplete unless we make an effort to do everything else. So for example, refraining from backbiting, refraining from other sins of the tongue and of the heart. And when we do all of these, then we can hope to bring about a change in our lives. Allah speaks about some qualities of the believers. He mentions some incidents related to the Anbiya ﷺ of the past and how they were mocked. Again, as a consolation to Prophet ﷺ, that yes, the Makkans, they mock you, but remember, this has happened to many of the prophets before you. And their people will do the same, so do not despair. We then recite Surah Ibrahim. At the beginning of the surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah says that we've revealed this book to you so that you may take the people out from darknesses to light. So that you may take the people out from darknesses to light, with the instruction of their Lord towards the straight path, or the path that is worthy of praise. Allah is the one for whom is that which is in the skies and in the earth. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives an example of, he speaks about the Quran and the revelation of the Quran in the Arabic language. Allah says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن رَسُولٍ إِلَّا بِلِسَانِ قَوْمِهِ لِيُبَيِّنَ لَهُمْ. We have not sent any messenger except with the language and the tongue of his people, so that he may explain to them. All the Anbiya that were sent, they were sent and they spoke obviously the language of their people. And the Prophet ﷺ's language was the Arabic language. And the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ speaks about the greatness of the Arabic language, saying that this is the language that he spoke, it is the language of the Quran, and will be the language of the people of Jannah. And then Allah speaks about Sayyidina Musa ﷺ, and again a similar message was given to him. So we said وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا مُوسَى بِآيَاتِنَا, and we sent Musa with our signs, and أَخْرِجْ قَوْمَكَ مِنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ, that bring out your people from darknesses to light. So in the earlier verse, Allah addressing the Prophet ﷺ said, so that you may extract people. He didn't say any particular group. He said, so that you may extract and take out mankind from darknesses to light. But when he speaks to Musa ﷺ, he said, take your people out from darknesses to light. The reason for this is that Sayyidina Musa والسلام, was sent to Banu Israel. So they were his people, and he was instructed to give da'wah to them. However, Rasulullah was sent to the whole of mankind. And so his mission was far wider, and he was instructed to work on mankind in general and bring them out from darknesses to lights. Allah then speaks about some scenes of the Day of Judgment, in particular when he believes in Shaitan. Allah says that when Shaitan will say when the matter has been decreed, meaning when the Day of Judgment will take place, Inna Allah wa'adakum wa'ad al-haq. Allah promised you a true promise. وَوَعَدْتُكُمْ, I promised you, I went against my promise. Meaning, on the Day of Judgment, I mentioned this the other day, our Shaitan will stand and point to some hadith very arrogant with his hands on his hips, saying to people, look, I enforced you, I showed you and I gave you a promise, you obeyed. And today, don't blame me, but blame yourselves. I can neither help you nor can you help me. And then on that day he will say that I disbelieve in all of these things which I invited you towards. So then Allah speaks about how the people of Jannah will go into Jannah, those who obey Shaitan will enter into hell. Allah also speaks about being in Surah Ibrahim. He speaks about the story of Ibrahim ﷺ. He said, when Ibrahim prayed, Allah, make this city one of peace and save me and my children from the worship of idols. He was always praying for his children. And I mentioned the other day as well how his foresightedness and how he thought about his generations to come. And then he prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in relation to his family. And he said, I've left them in a valley where there are no crops near your sacred house. Why? And again, why did he leave them? So that they may establish salah. SubhanAllah. One key important ibadah that he left his family to do was to establish prayer. And then he prayed, oh Allah, make the hearts of a group of people inclined towards them, and bless them of fruits so that they may remain grateful. And the dua of Ibrahim was accepted. SubhanAllah, Makkah, but it was then barren desert, and what is it today? Have not the people's hearts been inclined towards him? And then again he prayed, again continuously praying about make me one who establishes prayer and my project. Then at the end of Surah Ibrahim, Allah speaks about some of the scenes of the Day of Judgment and some of the punishments of those who disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We then recited Surah Al-Hijj. Surah Al-Hijj is a Meccan surah, and in the surah at the beginning Allah speaks about his creation of Sayyidina Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, Shaitan's refusal to prostrate before Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. He mentions also the story of Sayyidina Lut alayhi salatu wasalam. We then recited Surah Al-Nahl, again a Meccan surah, very similar topics, speaks about the creation of the skies and the earth, and some of his bounties on mankind. Allah speaks about the mushrikeen and the claims that they would make. And again, continuously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala consoles the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam not to worry about them, not to let their kufr and their shirk stop him from what he was doing. Allah then speaks about how they, meaning the Meccans, had a tradition of when one of them would be given glad tidings of a girl, meaning having given birth to a baby girl, then his face would darken and he would hide from the people because of that which he was given glad tidings of. They would think it was shameful for them to have a baby girl. There's a hadith, a story of once a man, he came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said that, O Prophet of Allah, if I were to accept Islam, I want to know if my sins would be forgiven. So the Prophet ﷺ said, yes, of course, Islam forgives everything of the past. So said the Prophet of Allah, I have committed such a sin that I don't think that I will ever be forgiven. The Prophet ﷺ said, what sin is there that cannot be forgiven? When a person enters into the fold of Islam. So the man began his story, the Sahaba radiallahu anhu were listening. He said that my wife was expecting and I had to go away and travel on trade. And when I came back, I learned that she had given birth to a baby girl. So he said, naturally, I felt that inclination and that love for my child. But then I always remained fearful of what would happen, what would the people say. So he says that, but my heart wouldn't let me do anything to her. So he says she grew up in my house and we kept it hidden from everybody else. And I would play with her and I became very fond of her. And then one day, Abu Jahl and others came to my house and they said that we heard that you have a baby girl. Why have you not buried her yet? And why haven't you got rid of her yet? Because Abu Jahl and his comrades, they felt that this man, being a man of their clan, would bring, this girl would bring shame to their community. So he says, I had nothing to say, so then I promised him that I would get rid of her. So he says that I didn't tell my wife, but I told her that I'm going to take her to her uncle's house. So I took my daughter with me, and he says that we were going along, and then we went into the woods, and then she said to me that, Father, this isn't where my uncles live. So he says, I told her to stay quiet. And then I started to dig. And he says, I began digging, and she was digging with me. She didn't know what it was for. And then he said, I threw her in. And then she understood what was happening. She was crying. And she said, I could have at least said salam to my mother. And then he said, I buried her alive. The Sahaba were listening, they were all crying. Prophet was crying. And then he left. So he said to the Prophet, O Prophet of Allah, how can Allah forgive me for this? He says, my daughter, she comes to me in my dreams. And she says to me, on the day of judgment will be the justice of Allah, and I will get my justice. And he said, how can I be forgiven for this? So the Prophet said that you have completely, your story has completely rocked us all. But I have come with such a mercy that even this sin of yours will be forgiven. So Allah mentions about how they will bury their daughters alive. With that we complete, as I mentioned, Meccan surahs, they have very similar themes. So about Tawheed, Shirk, creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, revelation of book, Jannah, Jahannam, very similar themes. So with this we completed the recitation today. Tomorrow Surah Al-Israel, there's a bit more to say, so inshallah we'll discuss that tomorrow. Subhanallah wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin, wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidil mursalin. Rabbana zalamna anfusana wa in taghfir lana tarhamna lanakunanna minal khasirin. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adhaban nar. ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا واسرافنا في امرنا وثبت اقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. اللهم ارنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وارنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم انا نسالك من خير ما سالك النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ونعوذ بك من شر ما استعاذك من النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. وأنت المستعان عليك البلاغ لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. صلى الله وسلم على النبي الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.